And I'm in the east, north, central, 63% coal, which is a lot different than if you go to California, which is 47% hydro and 27% natural gas. So the point being, the regions are very, very different. And if we don't have a diversified portfolio based upon the regions, some big wind areas, some areas, they don't have a lot of wind. And if we, in a public policy arena, move to really disincentive base load generation, people are going to get harmed. Illinois is a 50-50 state, 50% nuclear pretty much, 50% coal. Although we do have a lot of wind generation, it's still very small in the overall portfolio of the generation. Missouri, across the line, 85% is coal generation. And Mr. Barton did mention the price. I mean, it's still base load generation is the low price commodity product, which gets, so people get harmed and the economy gets harmed by high prices, which is really kind of the initial, in my opening statement, that I wanted to make. And just another point, Mr. McCullough, the amount of coal used to generate electricity is decreasing. We've all admitted that, from 50% to 37%. What policy changes are needed to ensure that the coal continues to remain a significant part of our nation's diverse generation fuel mix?
Yes, I think as we reflected earlier, and I actually would like to qualify an earlier answer to the chairman's question around the legality of NSPS. We would take the position as not legal because it's the first time EPA has required a technology that's not commercially available.
Well, and I want to highlight that. There's three people who talked about supercritical power plants, coal, the cleanest. Thank you for doing that. But if the EPA rules on greenhouse gas ability, these brand new power plants, cleanest in the world, may not be able to operate. Is that true, Mr. McCullough?
We could not retrofit Turk plant, the most
because there's no technology.
That is not commercially available. There are no vendor.
And the other supercritical plants, do you agree with that, Mr. Falk?
Yeah.
Mr. Gherkin? And that's part of the point that we're trying to make from the coal regions. Even though we have the best power plant in the world, greenhouse gas, we don't have the technology to even capture it. And if it is, it's going to, the build out of the footprint is going to be in the billions of dollars, and it's going to take about 30% of electricity generation if you even had the technology. Mr. McClure, let's talk about this shift in natural gas. I'm all for it, but I think you alluded to, just like an electricity grid and a transmission grid, we may have some pipeline constraints, and you alluded to that in your opening statement. Can you talk about that?
Well, there's a recent example, a very real example in New England that I think many of you have become familiar with, where high demand for electricity and a very cold snap, high demand for gas for heating created a real spike in prices for both natural gas and electricity. There are other parts of the country where we simply don't have the gas pipeline infrastructure. We could not convert our two coal plants to gas because there's not an adequate gas line infrastructure there.
And Mr. Graham, like that's some of the challenges of wind power on the reverse side, just with the transmission grid, is it not?
Transmission is very helpful.
Just trying to wield that power to places that might be used. So those are, I think, those especially issues in a bipartisan manner that we could talk about is expanding our natural gas pipeline, expanding the transmission grid. And with that, my time is almost expired. I would just like to say we had a very good hearing on nuclear power last week. We talked about the NRC and the filtered vent issue and how that's going to create new challenges. All we're going to ask the NRC to do is make sure before they promulgate rules, they go through regular order. Those are additional rules and regulations that are very, very costly.